For years, the NBA 2K franchise has been the figurehead of sports gaming, with memorable MyCAREER, MyPLAYER modes, notable franchise additions with Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan play the moments, and the least exploitative feeling MyTEAM microtransaction mode, whose legal gambling empire paled to the exploitation kings of FIFA and Madden respectively. With each iteration of the franchise, promises of better gameplay, better players, better game modes are made, but the one that has been neglected, forgotten, is the franchise mode, or My League mode, or MyGM mode, or the MyNBA mode. Let's not even talk about the travesty that is the MyWNBA mode, an annually running side series that is the same broken version of the men's franchise mode with less features and less attention to detail. With the modern iteration of NBA 2K25, the early reviews were extremely positive, ranging from the best 2K in years to the best 2K has ever been. Yet as someone who runs an annual franchise mode, executes one-off multi-year rebuilds, the occasional 20-year career simulation, I walked away feeling that this game, specifically the franchise mode and some of the gameplay, is the worst it has ever been. So welcome to the 2-hour-long deep dive into 2K's forgotten game mode, the NBA franchise mode. Now you'll notice the theme of the NBA 2K development team is quantity over quality, overwhelming the game mode and the player with menus and submenus and features and subfeatures to lull you into a false sense of impressiveness. 2K is an intense game with the ability to customize your minute-by-minute rotations on a per-team basis, modify the morning and afternoon training schedule of your team daily, and play in the NBA in-season tournament, and this year even the FIBA tournament. The execution of these features range from lackluster to boring to completely broken and unusable, and this will populate a lot of the game mode. You'll see features that exist, and we're glad that they exist, and someone in the development team recognized that this is a need. But the actual quality of the feature and usability is non-existent. Look no further than the slam dunk contest, which is a part of a greater all-star weekend feature that feels like it would be a legendary addition to immersion, having the Vince Carter or Aaron Gordon dunks play through your memories as we see today's latest generation fly. Except this is the dunk contest. Now, when we first boot up NBA 2K25, we have to deal with the menu. So we load up the game and I immediately want to go over to the MyNBA eras mode and start my franchise. But we have to say no to MyTEAM. Give us more money prompts. Not once, but twice. You even bother to try to click anything when you're in these menus? Please give us more money. You owe us $19.99. And this looks like the menu that exists in those free-to-play games, any one of those exploitative, oh, we're going to have some fun playing Sudoku. Then bam, once you get 3/4 of the way through this puzzle, it'll say, oh, please give us $500. Otherwise, we're going to banish you from this game and ruin the entire experience. This is not what should exist on a game that costs full price, $70. Max price, I think $150 this year. This is exploitative nonsense. Not once, but twice you have to reject before you can even load up the MyNBA mode. And this is just a side note, this should not read MyNBA eras, this should just read MyNBA. And then once you go into MyNBA, it should give you a sub mode of eras. But that's just because the developers needed to point out to the board of directors that they're actually doing something and their salaries are worth the money that they're getting paid. Now let's start with MyGM mode. Before we can even start the conversation of what the franchise mode is, we have to briefly touch on the pathetic excuse of a game mode called MyGM, which was once a popular mode where you control every facet of an NBA franchise, from drafting to scouting to developing to training to even holding discussions with the owner of the team. After years of disappearing from the game mode options due to lack of attention, lack of care, lack of income revenue, lack of microtransactions, it's back and it's worse than ever. I personally booted up my franchise mode with the Chicago Bulls. That's the team that I'm using this year. A team that has been stuck in obscurity since the Derrick Rose days and are in severe need of a rebuild. And not just a mom and pop draft one superstar and they'll fix everything rebuild, but to tear them down and rebuild the entire roster from top to bottom from scratch, where the drafting and scouting team repeatedly draft worse players than were available.
Patrick Williams?
Tyrese Halliburton.
The development team destroyed the players who inevitably go to another team and play better. Where despite being a major market in America, Chicago, nobody wants to sign as a free agent. The coaching train has been a disaster where they still refuse to remove the milquetoast man Billy Donovan himself. The owner is a demon who undermines any positive changes. And you know what, while we're here, let's blame their health staff too, because Derrick Rose's career should have lasted longer. Not to mention that they trade away any good players that they have for nothing. They don't get draft capital back, and they trade away their draft capital for guys like Nikola Vucevic. Now, Chicago aside, fixing the Bulls is going to be a multi-year process. And with a depleted roster, with probably Kobe White as the only untouchable player on the team right now, they're going to need a few years of tanking, gathering assets, manipulating trades, basically run like the OKC Thunder for a few years before we can say anything positive about the Chicago Bulls franchise. Then comes MyGM mode, where this absolute clown, this fool, this nimbecile. What are some other G-rated insults? In the first interview with you, he says, I want draft picks. Okay, you want draft picks, so do I. I'm going to try to trade away some of the existing talent for future draft picks. I'm going to make sure that we put ourselves in position to draft high in the lottery every single season. No, I want first round picks in this year's draft. I go, okay, well, that depends on the quality of the draft class. You look at last year's draft class, the number 1 overall pick, Zachariah Risache, looks to be trash. The number 2 overall pick looks to be trash. There's a lot of years where the players are like Anthony Bennett when you go, oh, I don't know how good they're going to be. Then there's other years where they're like LeBron James or Victor Wembanyama, where you say these guys are going to be superstars out of the gate. So we'll see. No, I don't want just draft picks. I want 5 first round picks in this year's draft class.
What?
Are you kidding me? This is stupid. This is Jack Black Minecraft levels of stupidity.
Don't I know it?
Not to mention all the particulars of the situation. I mean, imagine I could hypothetically tank for the season, win the lottery, get the number 1 overall pick, have the opportunity to draft Victor Wembanyama or LeBron James 2.0, trade that pick away for pick 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and then I win this made up scenario. Do you understand the stupidity of this idea? Whose ever job it was to create scenarios on the 2K team was a fool. Now, the thing about the remainder of this MyGM mode is it's largely the same. I had one conversation with the scouting team, one conversation with the health team, whatever they're called, and then it was just the exact same as MyNBA mode. Go play the game, simulate the games, change the rosters around a little bit. But wait, no, it's actually more restrictive than MyNBA. Anybody who's played this game before knows that you need to play with the sliders. Hall of Fame mode sucks. The contract sliders suck. The stamina sliders suck. You have to go in and make these micro changes. And while I appreciate that 2K gives us the ability to do so in MyNBA mode, guess what? They don't let you do it in MyGM mode. You cannot perform critical setting changes that are needed to fix a broken game, like, oh, I don't know, editing my player's position because they think Josh Giddey is a shooting guard. What are we doing here? Josh Giddey is a point guard. I can't fix him. Add, edit, remove. I can't fix player positions that are broken. Okay then, Kobe White is our point guard of the future. Josh Giddey is our shooting guard of the future. Ignoring the fact, I won't even complain that we exist in a positionless NBA. You like to see the developers update the terminology to something more modern. If I can't explain to you why a ball-dominant, non-shooting pass-first player like Josh Giddey needs to play point guard, and I need to be able to edit that, then we're just lost, man. Not to mention, there's no point, there's no incentive to removing my ability to update the sliders other than, what, immersion? Nonsense. MyGM mode is unplayable. So when they're in the trailers and they're on their tours and they're in the advertisements saying, guess what, MyGM mode is back, everybody, you want to spend full price on our game? No, you don't, because it doesn't work. Now let's actually talk about the MyNBA mode. So when we load up, this is a great mode. I believe 2, maybe 3 years ago, they brought in the eras mode, and you have to say, you know what, that was a great addition that we haven't seen in a long time to any franchise mode. That means MLB, that means Madden, that means NCAA, that means 2K. Having the ability to go back in time and play with rosters from the 80s, 90s, from LeBron James' era is a beautiful thing. And it should be mandatory, not just these eras, but every single year. I should be able to say, I want to play in the year 2006. Now we have existing workarounds for this. As players of the game, we can download custom rosters, but it's not the same thing. They don't have the same sort of ability to implement historical changes. And I just don't get why. We're multiple years down the road and that feature doesn't exist. We can only pick the years 1983, 1991, 2002, 2000 and what is this, 10, 12? It doesn't even say. Nice job there. And then 2016, once again, doesn't say, which was completely unnecessary. I know the Steph Curry quote unquote era, even though it was the LeBron James era, Steph Curry was just living in it, was when basketball started to shift. But none of those changes are actually implemented. It doesn't run inefficient mid-range triangle offenses in the LeBron era. It still rewards the same sort of gameplay. It doesn't say, oh, this is the Jordan era. The rules were different and we're allowed to beat the living hell out of the NBA players, snatch them out of the air like we're actual criminals trying to kill each other. It still implements the same 2K gameplay. You just have a filter over it instead. So that's two complaints rolled into one. But at the same time, I was really hoping that they would actually take this mode to the next level. They do have great filters over the cameras and they're like, oh, let's use the old-timey scoreboards, which is a great touch. How about let's implement something before the 80s? Give me the Bill Russell era. Give me the George Mikan era. Let's go black and white. Like if you're going to create a feature and add all this depth to it, let's create a feature and add all this depth to it instead of give us this shallow performance of what could have been. Yes, it's fun to be able to go back and play in 2016 or 1991. But how about if I wanted to play 1994? Michael Jordan has retired. I have to create a custom roster. While I can use the one that exists here, there's going to be rule changes. Teams are going to move. There's certain things that I need to modify manually. And you're just making the work placed on me instead of something that you should be able to create because you already have the system in place. But anyway, let's hop into the actual mode. And I'm going to have to break this up into multiple parts because there's a lot to cover in this game mode, which is, like I said, a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. Obscurity by overload. So the first thing to discuss is the roster management / coaching. Now this is probably the most effective, the best working feature that NBA 2K has, specifically this coaching gameplay and screen where you give out minutes. You give out 48 minutes per position. We're still using archaic terminology, point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. That's fine. You can customize who's coming in off the bench, the 6, 7, 8, 10th mans. You can run 13 deep. You have the reserves, these guys who are not allowed to play. I don't know if that's actually how it works in today's game, if you can have 14 active players or not. Now, what you're not able to do here, and you have to trigger manually, is stuff like load management, sitting out back-to-back games, only playing a certain number of games in a month or a certain amount of games in a year, having a minutes restriction, players coming off of injury that you want to give sort of a road to recovery pathway back. That doesn't exist unless you want to go in here and manually edit these every single day. Not to mention they took away who's going to be your primary scoring option. This was a screen that existed in past 2K rebuilds where you were able to say, okay, I'm the Lakers. I want to start to run my offense through Anthony Davis. He's going to be the number 1 option. LeBron James will be the number 2 option. And then D'Angelo Russell will be the number 3 option. They took that away either because it was too difficult to actually create or it was too difficult to implement. I couldn't tell you. And I got to be honest, absolutely nobody that I know uses a separate rotation minute restrictions on a team-by-team basis. Now, there are these complex commands. I also don't think anybody's ever used this. Instead of creating complex or simple coaching commands, how about we just create basic settings like, do you want to load manage your stars? Do you want to try trial and error rotations? Do you want to see if a Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon lineup is going to be more effective than a Nikola Jokic, Zeke Naji lineup? If you turn injuries off, the rosters are going to remain the exact same for all 82 games for all 30 teams. Every guy's going to play their certain number of minutes, their exact same rotations. There's no trial and error. There's no experimenting. There's no behaviors that actually exist in today's NBA game. The only time that the rosters and the rotation changes is if either you go in this screen and manually change it yourself, or you have to deal with injuries. Other than that, most of the time, especially this year with a bad rookie class, there's no all-rookie screen at the end of the season simply because the rookies didn't play any games. I mean, especially in today's analytics-driven NBA, this is what the NBA season is all about. Trial and error, trying different lineups. Maybe Jared Vanderbilt should play at the 3. Maybe Rui Hachimura should play at the 4. Maybe Austin Reeves can come off the bench and you have Dalton Connect play the 2. This is what you do when you're an NBA head coach. When you're running a franchise, is you tinker with the rotations. This isn't what 2K does. Instead, they have nonsense like a system proficiency screen, which I don't even know if this actually affects the sim stats and attributes of the team. I couldn't tell you what it directly correlates to. As for the G League, I seem to remember that there was a sort of sub menu sub option where you could go into the G League and actually view the games that they play. But for the most part, the G League is already starting off broken nonsense that we're not able to control. We only get 3 guys out of the entire G League roster that we're able to go in and say, okay, I want to assign Bronny James to the South Bay Lakers because he's horrible at basketball. I want to assign Max Christie. I don't have any direct control over my G League team roster, which is something that even MLB The Show has. I know development and minor league baseball is so much more important in the major leagues, so they actually send LeBron James after an injury to go play in the G League for a game or two, get back to game speed, and then come in and join the professional ball club. They don't do that in the NBA. I get that. But the G League is an important part of team development and of player development. You're hard pressed to find a roster of guys who doesn't have at least 2 players who haven't been in the G League. I should have direct access to my G League team, and the G League team should have all of the same options as the starting team does for the Los Angeles Lakers. Don't think this is too much to ask for. It's largely going to be a copy and paste feature set like they do in MLB The Show. Unless they're a rookie or under a 75 overall, they always block it anyways. So the G League is a largely non-effective, unimportant feature that exists in 2K but has not been implemented correctly. Now they have an NBA analytics tool here, and I appreciate that this exists. I've never been able to use it just due to the absurd complexity of it, and I would like them to have some preset stats already in here. Going back to the trial and error of the NBA season, I want to see which rotations on my team specifically have the best on-off numbers, which team have the best points per possession, which players are the weaknesses. Why is Russell Westbrook's box score a -40 when he's on the court with Nikola Jokic? Simple things like that I want to be able to look up. I don't really want to have to go and confirm and select by the 76ers and plot on the x-axis the stat totals of the career offensive rebounds over the NBA average. I mean, it's just, this exists, and I think there's a world where I'm able to use this after research. You'd really like to see them set something up that's a lot simpler, easy to read, and easy to understand than the existing analytics tool. I've never been able to effectively use that personally. Maybe you could call that a personal flaw. Now let's talk about the contracts and the free agency screen. Now, in the NBA, salary caps are tough. You have the base salary of every single player, but you have to take into account the veterans minimum, which is proportional to the number of years of NBA service that they have. You can't go over the NBA cap if you're signing new players, but you can go over the NBA cap and into the luxury tax if you're extending players that are already on your roster. You have mid-level exceptions, you have veterans minimums, you have veteran minimums that you can go into the luxury tax over when you're signing somebody, but you can't sign somebody to $1 over the veterans minimum. But then you have incentives for guys who want to join a team that are on a veterans minimum, who are probably worth more than that because they're going in a contract year. You have multiple different mid-level exceptions. You have taxpayer exceptions. You have luxury tax exceptions. You have over the cap exceptions. You have multiple different outlets. You'll notice that every single team's salary cap is hell, and most of the teams have specific dedicated guys who are looking only at the salary cap on a daily basis, seeing how they can navigate and execute trades. And that's an NBA problem, not a 2K problem.
There's a salary cap, which is estimated at 141 but once you hit about 172 million, that is a very soft taxes who make about a certain you're allowed to multiply it, you can't just exception tax. But once you hit about basically to get
My brain hurts!
Ideally, what 2K would do is make it simple, which they have. They have the hard cap, they have the soft cap. You're able to go in and sign players up to that level, whatever that 140.59 salary cap is. You have the luxury tax threshold, 170.80, which the luxury tax, because this is fake made up video game money, doesn't really matter, but you can if you want to be immersive. And then you have the hard cap, which is not listed here. If I was to make an easy to understand salary cap for NBA teams, I would first of all create 2 options. One, the realistic option that NBA teams have to deal with on a daily basis for guys who super immersed and into the actual team building aspect. Start today, see what players you're actually allowed to trade for, how you have to match salaries when you're trading for teams, what exceptions you're allowed to sign players with, And then I'd have this simple, the basic soft cap, luxury, hard cap like they have now, one mid-level exception when you go over the cap. That's basically what 2K has now, but they don't have the complicated salary cap versioning, which is what actually exists in the sport, which is what teams have to actually deal with today. The major issue here is that the game mode has the simple, basic, easy to read version, but not the difficult one if people want to get immersed. Look at a game like Football Manager 20, where they have 80,000 different submenus. It's not for everybody, but some people truly enjoy it. And that's the type of duality that you should be able to have in a game that costs $150 a year. Have the simple mode for the casual gamers, have the in-depth complex mode for the people who really want it. As for free agency itself, the main issue with free agency is what the players are asking for, A, and what the teams are willing to give up, B, because a lot of these players are looking for way too much money. Kyrie Irving, 33 years old. Would he be looking for a 5-year deal? Maybe. Teams aren't really negotiating though. It's the Dallas Mavericks giving him a max offer, and then nobody else is giving him anything worthwhile beyond a 1-year, $25 million deal. Kyrie Irving, what did he sign for? 3 years, $126 million. He's looking for 2 years, $120 million. Already, that's broken. Jimmy Butler, 35 years old, looking for $53 million a year. Looks like he's getting less than that. That's about as realistic as 2K gets once you get into the older ages. Chris Middleton wants $43 million a year. For a guy who doesn't play anymore, that's nonsense. Miles Turner wants $35 million a year. I just can't imagine a 5-year 170. Josh Giddey, 22 years old, 80 overall, wants $42 million. He's lucky if he's getting a mid-level exception unless he plays well this season. Jalen Duren, $38 million is the asking price. D'Angelo Russell, barely a $20 million a year guy, wants $30. Killian Hayes wants $26 million. Killian Hayes can't buy his way onto a roster via a 2-way contract. Zaire Williams, $24 million. Russell Westbrook signed for mid-level exception, $21 million. Dorian Finney-Smith, probably a 3 years, $10 million guys per year, wants 18. Kyra Lewis Jr., a 71 overall, isn't going to start anywhere. Wants Tyus Jones, starting point guard, $18 million money. Joshua Primo, is he even in the NBA anymore? $17 million asking price. Some of the contracts that they're asking for make a little bit of sense, like Dennis Schroeder, $16.4 million a year. That's about what he should be looking for. Adrian Griffin, who's not in the league, 7 overalls lower, should not be looking for the exact same type of contract. Neither should Grant Williams. These absurd salaries that players are asking for inevitably end up in every single team is over the salary cap. The Knicks, $53 million over. Kings, $24 million over. Jazz, $24 million over. Hornets, $28 million. The Heat didn't sign Jimmy and they're still 6 over. Hawks, none of these teams make moves to get under the salary cap to save money. And I know that I think like 20 of the 30 teams in the NBA are over the salary cap. Why are the Wizards over the salary cap still? Only the San Antonio Spurs are under the salary cap. So if I want to go and make a trade, if I want to say, you know what, I'm going to give up Austin Reeves for a 2nd round pick. Let's just say I lose my mind. Nobody is able to make this trade because not a single team has room in the salary cap. And like I said, salary caps are tough, but there's a lot of teams in the NBA. I think the Wizards, even this year, have $20 million in cap space to go sign somebody. I believe the rule is that NBA teams only have to spend 3/4 of their salary on players. They don't have to go into the luxury every single season. Teams that are competing, the Warriors, the Suns, the Lakers, the Celtics, absolutely are going to be aggressive, go into the luxury, try to sign the best players. Teams that are tanking are going to want to have cap space. They're going to want to take on those Al Horford and 2 first-round picks trades so that they can waive him, absorb the cap hit, and then get draft capital out of it. Teams are going to be smart with their salary cap. Not to mention the absurdness that is these players asking for money. So when you go to sign them in free agency, guess what? There's a whole bunch here. Chris Middleton, 84 overall. You telling me not a single team wants to sign him for 1 year, $10 million? Clint Capella, D'Angelo Russell, Lonzo Ball, Andre Drummond, Chris Brown. Not Not a single team is going to sign these guys. These are the equivalent of the current free agent market right now. Amadou Diallo, DJ Wilson, Von Maker, Jaleel Okafor, Frank Kaminsky, Raekwon Gray, Isaiah Miller, Boban Marjanovic, Amadi JaVale McGee, Sharif Cooper. Those are the only guys who are available for free agency right now. In 2K, Chris Middleton, Fred VanVleet, Clint Capella, D'Angelo Russell, Lonzo Ball, Andre Drummond, Christian Brown, Saddiq Bey, Julian Strawther, Trey Jones, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And then let's say you want to go and actually sign these guys. You want to actually bring them to your team. You say, oh, I have a mid-level exception available to me. Sure, I'm not quite in the salary tax. I'll give you $10 million for 1 season. Nobody else went and signed you. Let's negotiate a contract. Chris Middleton, nobody gave a crap about him. Nobody signed him. He wants $29.27 million. That's great in real life, but nobody signed you, so you're going to have to temper your expectations. I'll give you the full of our mid-level exception to play for us for 1 season. $5.53 million. That's the best offer he's going to get. Oh, he declines. He'd rather not play. He'd rather sit at home than earn any money whatsoever. And you say, oh, that's just Chris Middleton? Okay, let's go to Saddiq Bey. The exact same offer, $5 million. He's probably a veteran's minimum guy. Saddiq Bey would rather take no money than go on a contract and play basketball. Killian Hayes cannot make an NBA roster because of his badness. Will not accept the full of my veterans minimum to play basketball for our team. And that's why there's guys that are young and talented that are not on rosters. Jeremiah Robinson Earl. You'll surely accept this. Nope. Jeremiah Robinson Earl says no. And these are talented players. Chris Middleton, Fred VanVleet. I've seen Jimmy Butler in free agency. Hall of Fame caliber guys. James Harden in free agency. Should never be left unsigned in free agency. And that's because the contracts are broken. They expect a certain amount of money compared to what their potential is. What this made up number that says how good they could theoretically be in an abstract universe determines how much money they're looking for. Guys like Andre Drummond only wants $10 million because his potential is like a 78. Guys like Clint Capella wants $30 million because his potential is a 83. If contracts and development were statistic based, guys who are good but haven't had their chance to shine would be more agreeable. They'd be signing team-friendly contracts and then breaking out. And those guys would be on team-friendly contracts, like a Kobe White, who's only earning $12 million this year. In 2K, he'd be asking for 30. But because he struggled statistically, he got the contract that matched his output instead of what his potential number was. Contracts need to be statistic-based, not numbers based on whatever ratings they were given by some guy who doesn't really watch basketball. This would mean guys who are earning 30, 35 minutes a night, putting up decent numbers like a Tobias Harris, is going to sign a big $26 million contract, even though he's nowhere near worth that money. Guys who are talented but aren't getting their moment to shine become good assets. Guys who get way too many minutes and put up empty calorie stats are bad assets. This is how real life works. And now this is more of a nitpick of the broken system that exists. There are random players on their rookie deals that are going to hate you because of the broken player loyalties that exist. The player ambition screens, they have how much they want to play for a winner, how much their financial security matters, and how much their loyalty matters. That being said, it doesn't work as intended. A lot of times a player is going to absolutely hate you because either A, they're not earning enough money, or B, you're not winning enough. Which makes no sense because A, they're not earning enough money because they're on their rookie deal. This is the predetermined deal as set by the NBA, not by me. I didn't say Bilal Coulibaly, 79 overalls, limitless potential. I'm only going to pay you $7 million because I think you should go f yourself. No, this is how much rookies make. And then what I do is I go to a contract extension and I say, you know, you're the future of our team. I'm going to give you $150 million over 3 years to re-sign with the team. Too late. He's already mad at us. Relations are broken. Bilal Coulibaly will not be re-signing. This is beyond stupid. They don't like the money they're making. I'm trying to offer them a max extension and they won't sign with me because of the money they're making. What? Not to mention guys get mad at you because you're losing, for example, like a Tristan Vukcevic.
Who?
Our relations are heated because we're a losing basketball team. Playing for a winner is somewhat important. Well, guess what, Tristan Vukcevic? The Washington Wizards are rebuilding. You're the one who signed here. You know that the Wizards suck. You need to know that we're going to be losing a lot. Playing for a losing team sucks, and I understand that. Playing for a team that's rebuilding and going through the doldrums of an NBA 5-year rebuild is brutal. You're going to lose a lot of basketball games. You're going to be disappointed a lot of the time. That's part of the process, and that's a recognized, acknowledged reality in the NBA. Certain guys like a Jeff Green are going to say, you know what, I don't mind. I think this is a good core of young players. I'm going to sign here, help foster some of the guys, help bring them along and develop them. Winning a championship isn't my priority. Guys like Russell Westbrook want nothing to do with the young talent. He wants to go play for a winner. Everybody has their own preferences. But getting mad at me because you signed with a rebuilding team that's losing and you're playing down 5 overalls is stupid. And some minor points that I want to talk about here. Thank you for having this upcoming free agent screen. I do appreciate that this exists. At the same time, I wish that they would fix the rookies that are going to be free agents as well. It just kind of populates the screen, makes you think, oh, Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama are going to be available for us this free agency class. No, they're not. Luka Doncic is, Kevin Durant is, De'Aaron Fox is, Paulo Banchero is not. Jalen Williams is a rookie on his rookie deal. Victor Wembanyama has a team option. They're definitely going to pick that up. So if there was a way to just add like a second section, like press one button over and you'll see the rookies that may or may not have their team options picked up versus guys who are going to be legitimate free agents, would make this screen a lot easier for me to negotiate. Jimmy Butler is a free agent. Trae Young has a player option, might not be a free agent. Just some clarity to a screen that's just full of confusing things. And the last thing about contracts is that I wish that they fixed the off-season rookie extensions. You are able to offer the rookies a contract extension in the off-season free agency period. That being said, there's no specific menu to do that. And I've been doing rebuilds for 5-6 years now on 2K. I forget every single time because you have to go into a submenu of a submenu for a feature that you're probably not going to need in the first place. I don't know why they don't just have a pop-up like they do in the regular season that says, this is the contract extension. Why don't you pause to simulate so that you can re-sign your rookies? Just implement the exact same thing there that you have in the regular season for normal contract extensions. And yes, in the making of this video, the update required impossible to remove pop-up has appeared, and anybody who has played 2K knows the absurdity of this. I mean, I don't. Let's all breathe. Everybody get together. We'll sit in a prayer circle and I don't understand why this update is required, is mandatory for all game modes across like every 2K that exists. I can understand if you're playing in an online mode, in MyTEAM mode, playing against other people, you want to have the exact same versions of the game going up against each other, otherwise there might be an unfair advantage. But if I'm just playing myself on my own little game here, my own little franchise, unrelated to the rest of the ecosystem of NBA 2K, do you really need to have this impossible to remove screen? Can't you have a little button that says, dismiss? Ignore me, please. I'll update you next time you load up the game. Is there no feasible way to just allow us to play the game that we've purchased without forcibly updating it? And then as soon as we press the update screen, guess what? Pop up, give us money, my team mode, woohoo! I don't understand. It's like a combination of greed meets incompetency meets annoyances. And it's not a game-breaking bug or feature, whatever you want to call it. It's just another bit of frustration, a little inkling that adds to the entire painting that is the frustrating NBA 2K experience. Now, the staff screen continues to be irrelevant. I remember 2 NBA 2Ks ago, they said, wow, we added so much depth and creativity to the MyStaff screen. And what they did is they just let you hire 17 guys or 15 guys out of 17 positions. I don't even remember. You weren't able to even fill out the entire MyStaff screen. Now they've simplified it to the governor, owner, the GM, you, the assistant GM, which is largely useless and ineffectual because we're the GM. I don't know why that's a thing. The CFO, which pays attention to money, but nobody cares about that feature. Head coach, scout, team doctor. Now, the addition in this 2K was you can assign and unassign bonus staff. I don't know what that does. It gives them a percentage boost here, which again, just don't know what that does. I think it makes them theoretically better, but there's no metric to tell you how impactful these players are. How much having a good head coach versus a bad team doctor, or a good team doctor versus a bad head coach. I've won with awful auto-generated coaches with one badge. I've lost with Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr with 1,000,000 gold badges, or the always pre-built Mike Stauffer head coach who's got perfect ratings across the board. It doesn't really impact your game all that much. The worst part of the staff is that a lot of times it doesn't work how it's intended. Let's say I'm the Atlanta Hawks, not a small market team by any stretch of the imagination. I want to give an offer to Joe Mazzulla. I want to give an offer to Eric Spoelstra, and I want to give an offer to Steve Kerr. But these are the max dollars that I'm able to give, because 2K only recognizes teams like the Golden State Warriors and the New York Knicks as big market teams who can offer what the head coaches are actually looking for. You see here, the starting bid for Steve Kerr is $11.96 million. So even though I'm the Atlanta Hawks, I'm a pretty good team. The ATL is willing to spend. I'm going to get rejected by Steve Kerr. I'm going to get rejected by Eric Spoelstra. I'm going to get rejected by everybody except Joe Mazzulla, because I only have $6 million to spend, even though there's no cap on how much you're able to spend on a head coach. That's completely separate from the salary cap. That amount of money should be a completely separate pool that you can, I don't know, negotiate with the owner based on how well your team is doing. Maybe you could divide the coaches up into what their talents are. Are they a development coach? Are they a culture coach? Are they a winning coach that wants $20 million a year? The Detroit Pistons gave Monty Williams $100 million to fix their team. These teams that aren't small markets like Detroit or Atlanta have money to spend. They don't want to spend $500 million in the luxury tax, but $20 million for a coach that's guaranteed to give them success, even though Monty Williams wasn't. There's a whole nother problem. Is more than realistic. Why I'm the Atlanta Hawks and am only permitted to spend $6.47 million is nonsense. It's just because that's whatever formula came up in the 2K background. The MyStaff mode is just so generic and so bland and so uninteresting, uninspired. Imagine a world where you could invest in your health and training staff. Let's say while you're rebuilding, you dedicate some of the money that would have gone into the luxury tax and you put that in on your health staff. So you get a 10 or 15% boost to player recovery time. So you get lower percentages of on-court injuries. Or you say, we're rebuilding this year. I'm going to spend all my money on scouting. I'm going to go intercontinental and I'm going to scout some guys in Turkey that maybe we could bring over to our G League team. Or the head coaches. They have, like I said, build something that exists already in a game in the NCAA 25, where they have that little pentagon that shows you, oh, I'm this type of coach. I'm a development coach. I'm an offensive coach. I'm a defensive coach. I'm a culture coach. And you could upgrade your guy throughout the various amounts of success you have in the season. And you could have different levels of specialities that you have as the head coach. And then your assistant coaches have that too. But you don't want to upgrade the assistant head coaches too much because they're going to go off and join another team. And maybe your assistant coaches take some of the plays out of your playbook like Mike Brown did from the Golden State Warriors under Steve Kerr. I mean, all these options are available to you, but this is the menu that we have. This basic bare bones, it feels like nothing when we're talking about the MyStaff mode. Moving on to the trading screens, and I don't have too much complaints on the trades. I like the trade finder. I think 2K was the one that invented it. It said, you know, give other teams trade offers for whatever player you put up on the trade finder based on how important they are. And every single franchise mode has adopted something similar to this. My only complaints are that there's no way to trade for superstars. And sure, it's not realistic for me to trade for like a Victor Wembanyama, but an Anthony Edwards, let's say they have a bad regular season. I should be able to figure out a trade for all the good players. Obviously, they have no money. I should be able to say, I'm going to give you every first round pick that we have for the next 5 years, pick swaps, pick whatevers, give you a prospect, give you a superstar, give you basically everything to restart and rebuild your franchise while you give us the #1 overall pick. And naturally, these picks aren't going to go through because whatever. There's no such thing as a disgruntled superstar in NBA 2K. Now, I'm not saying I should be able to trade for Victor Wembanyama every year, but if I'm giving you, you know, an MVP talent, a good prospect, like 5, 6 first-round picks that are all going to be top 5, there should at least be the off chance that I'm able to trade for a superstar. And I'm just never able to make that trade because of the way 2K overalls are. Even a Giannis, 30 years old, he's asking out right now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Topic, this pick has 3 stars. This pick is going to be top 5. This pick's going to be top 10. And our first round pick, and I can't get a 30-year-old Giannis who's on the decline, who's getting worse every single season. The trade logic for the superstars just sucks. Anybody who's higher than a 92 is near impossible to trade for. Like, should Nikola Jokic be wanting out? No, but should I be able to trade for him for a team that hasn't won a championship? Absolutely. Even Jason Tatum, who's basically the same overall as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they get all this. I mean, the Celtics should at least think about making a trade similar to this, and it's just impossible because the number is too high, and the trade logic dictates that you're not allowed to do trades like this. And that's something that no other franchise mode has, is the inability to trade for superstars. That's something not even real life has, is an inability to trade for a disgruntled superstar. Let's say your team hasn't won a championship in 2 years. They went under 500 this year, like the Bucks. I should be able to at least put out an offer, a realistic offer to trade for your superstar. I suppose that's the biggest problem with the trade finder, is that it doesn't actually work. This is a trade that should realistically work. Shai for Giannis and a million first-round picks. And if this doesn't work, give me an option to see why it doesn't work. Give me a trade that you will be willing to put through. You go to the actual trade finder, and this is the message that it gives you. There's no offers found for the selected player. I'm not able to make this trade no matter what happens. Why? Or there's a trade that the other team would clearly do, but the money doesn't work. Why isn't there a button that lets us simply say, okay, take out this, you can add these many picks, and then all of a sudden the Milwaukee Bucks will be willing to make this trade. Simple things that speed up the process and make the game easier for us to play are missing from the trade finder mode. So you can't sign players, you can't trade for players, then the only other way to get players on your team that are good is the drafting and scouting system. And the scouting has not changed in years. It is the same miserable, boring system. The actual scouting process is this. You go, you look at the players who are going to be drafted, and you click a little button to say, I want to scout this guy. That's it. Okay, that's the max number of players I can scout, like 15 or whatever. Go ahead and scout these guys. Oh, you want to scout them again? Let's click the same guys. Then you go to the draft combine, and you can look at these various things. And I gotta be honest with you, none of these translate to any sort of statistical importance. I just like to read them out when I'm doing my rebuilds to say like, oh, this guy's fast and this guy's agile and this guy can jump high. For the most part, none of these translate. The 3-point shot rating doesn't really translate to this guy's gonna be an A+ 3-point shooter. This guy's gonna be an A- 3-point shooter. This guy's gonna have a B+. Same thing as the pre-draft workouts, which again, this just gives you the exact same numbers as the NBA draft combine numbers. They just might vary a little. I don't even know if they do, and there's not really a way to check that out, is there? Let's see. Trevor Stevenson went 18 of 25 from the 3-point line, and this time he went 16 of 25 from the 3-point line. Like, they don't really give you a good concept of how good these players are. Secondly, scouting is mostly broken. When you turn on the automated scouting system, it does not scout anybody 100%. So you have to go through every single time and manually boop, 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 select the same players every single time until they're scattered 100%. Then you go down and boop, 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 select the next players until they're scattered 100%. If you let the CPU automation scouting system run its course, 99% of the draft class, especially all the guys you want to draft, are going to be in the 90s, in the 60s, in the 50s. I don't know what the logic is, but for some reason, they don't scout the guys 100%. So all these guys who are scouted 100%, that's because I was doing it manually for the first half of the season. Now, the actual prospects, it varies between really fucking dumb and sometimes they'll make a good draft class. Like Trevor Stevenson here is the #1 player in the draft class, mostly consensus. He has 5 badges. He's a 78 overall. He has A+ potential, and he has Hall of Fame ceiling. This guy, you know, is going to turn into a 90 if you draft him. After that, you kind of have to guess, which is similar to how it is in real life. A lot of it's a shot in the dark, so I don't mind that. Walt Cunningham has a higher overall, but he's only got all NBA ceiling. He's only got B- potential. He only has 4 badges. And then the issue with 2K is that, save for maybe 1 player every 10 draft classes, the rest of these players suck. They have B potential. Even if this guy says he's going to be Kevin Garnett, I can tell you right now, he's going to develop into an 83 overall. William Henderson, going to suck, all-star potential. Mladen Rodic, Hall of Fame potential, he's going to suck. In these draft classes, I don't know what it is in the code, but they get worse. You get 4 years into the rebuild, the draft classes, there's going to be like the number 2 player is a 62 overall. The number 1 player is a 71 overall. Here's a great example. So first of all, I had complete automated scouting on. There's only one player in the top, 50? That's 100%. Nick Black, who's a 72 overall, going 27th, late first. And Edward Sharp, who's going maybe at the tail end of the lottery, 74 overall. The rest, 92% scouted, 90% scouted, 87% scouted, 80%. When you do it manually, you can get 100% scouting for at least the first 50 players coming out of the draft. When you let the CPU do it, disgusting. Now let's talk about the overalls. They are atrocious. The number 1 overall pick, 79 overall, 18 years old. That's about fair. The number 2, 76. Okay, number 3, 22 years old. This is a super senior, 72 overall. This guy is a young raw prospect, 70, 19 years old. 21 years old, 20 years old, 23, 23, 22, 20. This isn't the NFL. Guys don't play in the NBA for 4 years, then go into the draft portal. No, they play 1 year, if that. Really, they'd like to come out as an 18-year-old. There's not a whole bunch of 22, 23, 24 years old coming out of the first round. There's the occasional Jaime Jaquez, maybe a Trey Murphy, but for the most part, every single player is a high upside 19-year-old draft pick. And look at this. We have one 19-year-old, 2 19-year-olds, and then the number 1 overall pick, who's the best player in the draft class. The overalls and the ages are just stupid. On top of that, not a single one of these players is going to amount to anything except the number 1 overall pick. I can already tell you from experience, bust, 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 bust. Maybe Trent Bosch might turn into something. He's got B potential. Bust. These guys aren't going to develop more than maybe 10 points, be an 83 overall, and that's as good as they get. There's no Donovan Mitchells. There's no Tyrese Halliburton's deep into the draft. It's nothing but bad players. The only way to field a real team of created characters is to consistently trade up for the number 1 overall pick and draft a guy who's got multiple badges, got an A- or whatever potential, and got Hall of Fame player comparisons. Not to mention that the badges are dumb. Why are there only 3 badges for these guys? I'm looking at Alex Sarr, 75 overall, horrible player, 2 badges. Rob Dillingham, 19 years old, 72 overall, horrible player, 3 badges. Victor Wembanyama, I can't confirm. He probably had like 20 badges as a rookie. And then I go over to my Bulls franchise. Go check out Bulls franchise if you haven't already. This was the number 1 overall pick, Dan Adams, 80 overall, 19 years old, Hall of Fame, A potential. He has no badges. Why? Just cuz. He's a generational talent, the best player in the draft, and he gets 0 badges. Whatever generates the players in the 2K draft system is both broken and boring as it exists. It has not changed. The scouting has not changed. To make anything even remotely interesting, a complete overhaul is needed in the drafting and scouting departments of NBA 2K25 and beyond. And nothing has changed for years. Now, when you talk about training, there's promise here. There's a prep hub where you can go to the training schedule. You can adjust the morning, the afternoon, and the evening sessions. And you can say, oh, let's work out here. We'll have shoot around before the game, blah, blah, blah. I have to tell you, I tried to do this on last year's franchise mode. It does nothing. The only thing that occurred is that I broke my guy's stamina because I tried to have practice every day except for like 1 day a week, which is apparently too much according to whatever system is in place. You have the individual training here. I really haven't seen this affect anybody all that much. I try to go in and make sure that I have guys like Amen Thompson working on their jump shot. I have guys like Patrick Williams working on being a 2-way player. But for the most part, I don't think this really affects how their overalls improve. I have the player mentorships here. Again, yet to be seen if anything truly comes out of this. You'd like to think that Maybe Onyeka Okongwu gets some of the badges. I can neither confirm nor deny the effectiveness of this feature, but it does exist, so that's nice. The big issue and the big concern is that development in this game is largely static. It's all based on this number here, this potential number, which determines how high this overall is going to be for each player. Trae Young's going to stay at a 90. Jalen Johnson's going to stay at an 80. Clint Capella might go up, but he's 30 years old, so he's a little old to go up beyond, what, 81? Onyeka Okongwu, 81. Zachary Rissaker is going to max out at an 86. Dyson Daniels is going to max out at an 83, for example. David Roddy's going to max out at a 79. And these are all just preset, predetermined numbers by some guy who works for 2K who gets to do the ratings for all these players. And again, there is potential here for them to make something out of this system. They have a peak start age, they have a peak end age, and as you know in the NBA, players don't hit their peaks until about 10 years into the league. There's so many nuances and reactions and chemistry that you need to build. There is a minimum and maximum potential here. Buzz percent, boom percent. The thing is, none of these actually matter. There is no fluid, dynamic growth to these players. What you see is what you get. What that potential number is the max that those players are going to be. Development is linear, either up for young players or down for bad players. There's no breakout seasons. There's no Jeremy Grant going to the Pistons and becoming a superstar. Christian Wood being great on the Rockets and then sucking and getting traded away. Steph Curry dealing with injuries but then gets signed to a reasonable exemption, then is healthy for a year and absolutely blasts off. LeBron James, guaranteed superstar. Johnny Davis, bust. James Bouknight, bust. There's no setting up your players to be in the best position to succeed like the Chicago Bulls don't know how to do. There's no dynamicism to the development system. Similar to contracts, the fix for this needs to be that your potential can be a preset number, like in MLB The Show. Let's say Victor Wembanyama has an A+ potential, but if you play him out of position, you play him at the shooting guard role and play him for 10 minutes a night for 10 seasons, he doesn't turn into a 99 overall. He turns into a 65 overall. Let's say you play Zachary Rissaker right next to Trae Young, and you focus on him developing an outside shot and you turn him into an outside scorer. He puts up 20, 25 points a night and you focus your entire 5-year rebuild on making sure that he turns into a superstar. He should have the ability to elevate his game to a 95, to a 99 overall. If he's put in a position to succeed, if he has the natural born gifts for it, the athleticism, the training for it, there needs to be a way to dynamically make sure that these guys can break out. NBA players don't just get drafted and then depending on what position they were drafted, get a little bit better each season. Some guys are like Jaylen Brown, where they're a great athlete and then they put the physical skills to match the NBA skills and become superstars. Some guys are like LaMelo Ball, who come into the league superstars and then are dealing with injuries. Some guys are like Anthony Edwards, who develop their game for a few years and then break out into superstars. Some guys are like Giannis, who are these crazy raw prospects, but then eventually they take over the NBA. Some guys are like Jokic, and they're a second-round pick, and nobody expects anything from them, but they have this God-given natural gift. And then what the Denver Nuggets did, they had Yusuf Nurkic. They cleared him out of the way. That said, Nikola Jokic, be the leader of our team, and he did. But that's because the NBA and real life is dynamic. It's ever changing, and you need a game system to match that. You need a dynamic potential system, and I think MLB The Show has a great one where your player's potential, the how good this player can be year after year, season after season, goes up or down depending on how well they do statistically, as well as given the other attributes, how young they are, how athletic they are, how high their basketball IQ is, whatever. A lot of the complaints that I see in today's rebuilds is that it's all the same. The players are going to be good or bad depending on what these preset numbers are. And it's just disappointing for a guy like me, for a channel like mine, who mostly does rebuilds, to get bored of it. Every rebuild is the same. And now we need to talk about the rating system. Now, me personally, whoever does the ratings, whatever single guy or whatever team they have put together that does these ratings needs to be removed, because they are just way too popularity based. If your player's fun, popular, you're going to get good ratings. If your player is core and essential to a team but doesn't have a flashy name, they're going to get trash ratings. Role players, for example, don't exist in 2K. Guys like KCP, guys like Derek White before he turned into a star, guys like Najee Marshall, the underappreciated guys who are going to hustle, bail out a team, help your team win, that matter in that plus minus column, they're going to get trash rating. While a guy with a name like G.G. Jackson is a 79 overall. Evan Porter Jr. is the same rating as Terrence Mann. Al Horford is an 80 to Peyton Pritchard being a 78. Luke Cornett is a 77 overall. Donovan Mitchell's only a 93. Darius Garland's only an 84. Josh Giddey's an 80. Jalen Smith is a 78. As well as the fact that each individual rating is, to be frank with you, just confusing. On top of that, after about one season of quote-unquote potential and development, every single player is about a 77 to an 81 overall. And I don't know what it is about 2K. They just love to minimize. You have the ability to grade players from 0 to 99. 100 if you really wanted to, but for some reason we don't allow 100 overall players. So from 0 to 99. Yet every single player except for the superstars is either 77, 78, 79, 80, and occasionally an 81 overall. The overwhelming majority, which is just not the way real life works. Anybody over an 80 overall is a low tier all-star. You can build a team around them and they'll average 20 plus a night on decent efficiency. And in 2K, Isaac Okoro is an 80 something overall after 1 year. Eldon Johnson is like an 83 overall. Trey Mann, easily 82 overall. And you get to the point where everybody's a really high 80 plus overall and the ratings don't actually matter that much. In fact, when you're actually playing the games like we do in Bulls franchise, the badges matter more than the ratings. I can have a 99 3-point rating, for example, but if I'm 2.1 feet behind the 3-point line and I don't have a limitless range badge, I shoot 0% from the 3-point line beyond those 2 feet, which makes me wonder how important are these actual ratings versus the badges that are assigned to them. And of course, we have the Luka blowjobbership. Whoever does these roster ratings absolutely loves Luka Doncic, and I get it. Luka's a great player. Maybe they have to tweak the stats so that these are the numbers that he puts up in real life versus what 2K generates. Luka is not and will never be a 50, 40, 90 guy. Last year was probably the best year that he's ever had. 48% from the field, 38% from the 3-point line, a career high, 78% from the 3-point line, from the free throw line, a career high. In 2K, he goes 53% from the field, 42% from 3, 84% from the field. You notice how these are a little different than the normal stats he puts up, and I'm not saying that there's no opportunity for growth, but these are simply unrealistic and absurd stats. He's literally doubling his box plus minus performances in real life versus in the video game. And there's such a vast disparity between reality and what the 2K numbers spit out. Same thing with the Celtics. Jason Tatum, career mid to high 40s field goal percentage. 2K, 53%. Career 30s, 1 year 40, and his rookie year 40. NBA 2K, 41%. And then their free throw is worse. Career over 80% from the free throw line. 2K, 79%. And then Joel Embiid, 30, 33, 34 last year. And then in 2K, 25, possibly a career worst. Why? Because 2K doesn't like Joel Embiid. There's certain players that 2K likes. There's certain players that 2K doesn't like. It's inexplicable. Kyrie Irving, because he's not Luka Doncic, he goes down. And I know he's been regressing, but we have evidence last year of how well he played. 25-5 guy. In 2K, he's a 22.9. We'll call it 23. Be generous. A 23, 3.9, and 4.8 guy. Like whoever does these ratings, they have the certain guys that they like and they have the certain guys that they don't like, and they specifically tailor all the stats to their personal preferences and popularity contests. Not to mention the sim logic. I mean, I don't understand the sim logic to 2K25 and in 2K as a whole. They've always had certain teams that they like. Look no further than the Atlanta Hawks. I think a few years ago, it was the Toronto Raptors. The Trailblazers always are just absurdly good in 2K24. And of course, the Dallas Mavericks And then they have teams that they don't like. They don't like the Celtics. They don't like the Bucks. They don't like the Nuggets. They don't like the Magic. They don't like the Suns. They don't like the Grizzlies. They don't like the Lakers. A lot of times, the Nuggets, I don't know how they went on this miraculous run here before they ran into Luka. A lot of times, the Nuggets, who are a 7 seed, don't even make the playoffs, even though they're obviously a top 5 team in the West. Like, who's bad here? The Grizzlies, with injuries, are off 28-54. Why? The Celtics were a 60-win team last year. They're off to an undefeated start this year. They're basically the same regular season team as the Indiana Pacers. Like, really? I personally have noticed that the Chicago Bulls this year are loved or beloved by NBA 2K. They're the 6th seed this season, even though they are a horrific bottom 5 probably team in the NBA. Teams that win are inexplicable. Teams that lose are inexplicable. The difference between winning and losing makes no sense. I mean, I recognize that sim logic is a difficult process to master. It takes in so many different factors into account to present a final product that may resemble the sport that we know and love. If this was like year 1 of having broken sims that don't make any sense, I mean, I might mention it in passing saying, golly gee, this year was pretty wild, wasn't it? But you can add that to variability. But we're, what, a decade plus into using the exact same simulation logic, having the exact same simulation problems, and having the exact same broken sim problems. How many times are teams getting 1-8, 2-7 upsets in the entire history of basketball? There have been 6 1-8 upsets and 6 2-7 upsets. Ever. Through the power of God and anime, we're going to simulate through 5, maybe 10 playoff series and try to decipher how the simcast logic worked. Now, here we are in year 1. This is actually this season of the NBA, where the Chicago Bulls are the number 1 seed. Knicks 2, 76ers 3, Heat 4, Bucks 5. That kind of makes sense. Hawks are 6. Interesting. Boston Celtics, the clear, far and away best team in the NBA, roster talent, top to bottom, defending NBA champions, are 7th in the East. Make that make sense. And how are the Chicago Bulls the number 1 seed? Like I said, some teams they just absolutely love. And here in the Western Conference, you have the Minnesota Timberwolves, the number 1 seed, even though they are going through, we'll say, trials and tribulations. Number 2, the Mavericks, that's fine. 3, the Thunder, that's fine. 4, the Nuggets, that's fine. 5, the Spurs. That makes sense, sort of. 76, Los Angeles Lakers 6. Kings are 7th, that's interesting. And then Houston Rockets are 8. A little low for my personal taste, but hey, it is what it is. Now look, here we are already 1 year in. We have a 1-8 series, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Houston Rockets. Neither team should be really seated where they are, and we have a 1-8 upset. Again, there have been, what was the number, 2 or 3 1-8 upsets in the history of the sport. We already have one here in the first year of the simulation engine. So as predicted by NBA 2K25, the current year, this very year, Chicago Bulls are the NBA champions. Zach LaVine, no, Luka Doncic in a losing effort is the NBA Finals MVP. That's, yeah. Here we are in the year 2026. I don't know if there's any way to show you, but I'm already seeing a 1-8 upset here. The Toronto Raptors, like I said, one of the more beloved teams in the NBA by NBA 2K, is losing the first seed sentences. I mean, it's just hilarious. This is the exact same roster they have, plus Malcolm Brogdon. They're the number 1 seed in the East, and they've already been 1-8 upsetted. We have the Detroit Pistons are the number 2 seed. Make that make sense. Cade Cunningham's already up to 194 overall. Luka Doncic, Victor Wembanyama, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and somehow the Kings are good. Nuggets are 5, Pelicans 6, Suns 7, Golden State Warriors 8. Chicago Bulls continue to be dominant for no reason in particular. The Brooklyn Nets are already up to the 6th seed. The Celtics are nowhere to be seen. I'm curious what their roster looks like. Don't even have injuries. They're just a below 500 team. They brought in Klay Thompson. All right, 2027 season, looking at the bracket, I only see a 2 seed getting upset, which has happened a little more frequently than the 1 seed. This was the Indiana Pacers, who were a 2 seed. That makes a little bit of sense. Brought in Jalen Duren as well. Fairly decent lineup overall. Getting upset by now the 7 seed Detroit Pistons, even though Cade Cunningham's developing up to a 97 overall. Why is he a 7 seed? Couldn't tell you, but you know what? They're good enough to advance to the second round. We have 3 years in a row, a 1 seed upset, a 1 seed upset, and a 2 seed upset. And that's just 3 years of simulation while the overall still makes sense. So, I mean, this is just the 2K simulation engine. It doesn't make any sense at all. Not to mention that the end of season awards are more just the same broken mess. routinely. I'll rebuild teams and I'll have guys, Giannis and Jalen Green and Jalen Brunson, all on the same team, all putting up like 25 points a night, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, clearly all NBA first numbers, and then have the best team in the NBA will win like 65 games, and I won't have a player on the all NBA first team, second team, or third team because of how these metrics are calculated behind the scenes. I don't know who does it. I don't know who's in control of the sim logic, but it just doesn't work anymore. You need to fix it, and they haven't cared about it in a decade. Franchise mode doesn't bring in the big bucks. It doesn't bring in the moolah the way that MyTEAM microtransactions does. And it makes you want to say, at what point are we going to get a legitimate simulation basketball game that actually reflects this sport? I will say that the NBA 2K franchise mode is probably the second best franchise mode that we have of the big 3 sports. You have Madden, which is a running joke every single year it comes out. They've been trying to make headway on some of the more disappointing features of that game mode, and they do have some features that you don't see in NBA 2K. Then you have MLB The Show, which is unfortunately boring and repetitive, but I think it has some of the most immersive and best franchise traits of all 3. And then you have NBA 2K, which is somewhere in the middle, dealing with the sport that is struggling to find ratings as NBA ratings are down across the board. And the game continues to be the exact same game that we played year in and year out. And it's been 10 years of mediocre product that the NBA 2K developers have been putting out. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, can't get fooled again.
Fool me, we can't get fooled again.
The onus falls on us, the players, the community, the people who physically buy the game, play the game, and support the game to demand better for ourselves, let alone from the 2K developers. And this mediocrity that we see year in and year out has to change, has to end. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Have I told you the definition of insanity?
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
And I suppose that's where we leave off with NBA 2K25 in the year of our Lord and Savior 2024, entering a new era of basketball and hopefully entering a new era of NBA 2K gameplay. Maybe they'll do a completely new overhaul in the upcoming NBA 2K26 where they no longer forget about the franchise mode, where they'll no longer overrate Luka Doncic stats, where they'll fix the contract screens and understand contract negotiations are more than just a bar that you fill up. Maybe, just maybe, something fruitful will come out of videos like this and people who are similar causing an uproar, demanding better from the development team at 2K. Maybe, just maybe, if we continue to speak out for what we believe in, for what we think is right, it will come true. That's going to do it for this one. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming along for the ride. I'm sure there's a few more things in different categories that I may have forgotten to put into this deep dive, but ultimately at the end of the day, the product that we are receiving is not adequate. And I urge each and every one of you to speak out and speak up against being the forgotten game mode in NBA sports. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, I will catch you in the next one.